Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. The Storm Cellar has, as usual, an incredible guest this week, all the way from across the Atlantic, which no stranger to the show here. I'll let Ray introduce him in a minute. Ray, today's interesting because we have a round 2, game 1 at 4, and then a round 1, game 7 afterwards, because the NHL scheduling monkey is bad at math.
Well,
and time and space, apparently.
And the Dallas Stars were bad at closing out the Golden Knights. That's the real issue there. I wish they would have finished that out. But nonetheless, we're getting excited. The game 1 against the New York Rangers, just hours away, and who walks in the door to the Storm Cellar to sit down and chop things up with us, but the great Paul Lawson. And Paul,
the number 90, the original. And he, of course, I had a chance to meet him in person very quickly at the Stadium Series weekend. It was the Friday. I was lining up to get my autographs, and all of a sudden I heard a distinctly Scottish voice holler out my name, and I didn't know what was. I turn and I'm looking around, and there's Paul charging toward me, and I'm like, "Oh my God, is this you?" And big hug. We're both huggers, which was nice to know, and got him to sign the flag and all the rest of it. It was so great. And we have him back to talk round 2. Paul, it's great to see you again. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the kind words and utter nonsense that you have just mentioned.
Oh. No. True every word. And, before we get into the Canes Rangers, there's still lots of other great hockey going on. And last night, Paul's equivalent to the team that shall not be named in mine managed to sneak out a crazy overtime victory over the Leafs. Leafs Bruins, another game 7. It looked like no one was going to score. And then all of a sudden, Leafs are on the board. Things are looking great for a whole minute and a half. The Bruins tie it up. It goes into overtime, and it was like a set play. The Lindholm throws the puck in. It gets a weird bounce, and unbeknownst to every Leaf on the ice, Pastrnak skates in and scores, and you look at some of the guys skating back. It was crazy. Nylander he wasn't even striding. He was coasting to the back, completely oblivious to the guy that was coming in. And Pasta, who had been criticized over and over and over and over for really a non-existent series for Pastrnak, because he was. I mean, it was crazy how little he was doing. He gets in there, scores the winner, becomes the hero. What did you guys think of that series? The Leafs haven't beat the Bruins in forever, since the 50s. And the Bruins really had no reason winning that series. They didn't look terrific at all. Even though they were up 3-1, they almost did it again and gave it up, and probably should have. What was your guys' take on this? Paul, I know you don't like talking Bruins, but we're going to throw it to you and see.
Yeah, it's a weird one. The Bruins gave up yet another 3-1 series lead, which they do, and Leafs doing what Leafs do, and their second round allergy kicked in again, but that from a Toronto point of view, that game-winning goal last night will have sucked really bad for them. If that happened against us, or for us, against us, that'd be a bitter pill to swallow. But yeah, I mean, the Bruins, I despise them. I really do. Absolutely.
Brad, it was weird. The Leafs, who were just kind of being, I think the word is pilloried. That's an old word, but it basically they're getting run over. And then Samsonov is pulled for Wall. Look at that. Paul making a quick jersey change, and he's wearing his Storm Cellar jersey. That is outstanding.
That's a beauty.
Love it. And the Leafs go to Wall, and for games 5 and 6, no Auston Matthews. Then they get to game 7, and mysteriously, right before the game, we find out Matthews is going to play, but Woll is out. And not only out, he's not even a backup. I was like thoroughly confused. What the heck happened there? Like,
I hope he did not get hurt on that 10th of a second shutout ending shot, because if he got hurt earlier than that, then I don't know how he finished the game.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem to be a practice thing, right? So did he see that or just, instinctively try and do something? I just wonder if he hurt himself in the last moment. But
he might have. But now the question is, now that the Leafs are out, what happens with the Leafs and this iteration of the team?
So Sheldon Keefe came out and said, let me try and find the exact quote here, because when teams play the Leafs, they set up the game for the Leafs to beat themselves. Which is an easy way to say it's 10:30 on Sunday morning, and I can't believe Sheldon Keefe has a job still.
Yeah.
That's a lot of words for I'm getting fired, right? And it's not all his fault. I've said for a little while that, this starts with Brendan Shanahan and moves all the way down the lineup.
Yeah.
Because I've said since we started this program that Edmonton's not going to win a cup without goaltending and defense. You can't have even the two of the best players in the world play and only do offense. And they've shown this year with the additions that they've made that they've started to finally learn the lesson, but Toronto has not. Next year, you have you got a $10.9 million guy, two $11 million guys, and a $13 million guy. So half of your cap space is in 4 guys. And we've said it a bunch of times. Freddie Anderson was not the reason that they choked back in, was it 2020?
No.
And as no offense to Samsonov and Woll, but you need a number one goalie. You need a real number one goalie, because every year we've seen this with the Leafs where somebody comes in and plays great and the fans are like, oh, that's the new guy. And then they fall off. And then that's the new guy. And then they fall off, right?
Yeah.
I fell asleep during the game. It was still 0-0 because it was just the most boring game of all time. But watching the highlights, and the thing that stuck out to me was, I think it was Willie Nylander, was when Pasta, it looked like a set play, right? They get it to Pasta, and Nylander wasn't the closest guy, and he wasn't going to catch Pasta, but he just kind of stood there like, oh, that's it. Like, that's, what do you want me to do? Skate toward the puck? If our goaltender gets to it and gets a bounce or something, like, I'm just going to stand right here. I'm not going to take a stride toward the net and do anything. And if you're paying that guy $11.5 million next year, and I'm not blaming him on the loss, but I'm just saying, between Matthews, Tavares, Marner, and Nylander, at least one of them's got to go. I don't know how Tavares keeps the C. If it's me, I'm basically throwing, I'm switching it up. I'm getting rid of the coach. If I'm the president, I'm getting rid of, I'm going to start cleaning house with Shanahan down, right? Yeah. You need a new idea that, and they came out like, oh, it's the core's not the problem. It's not that the core's a problem with what they're being asked to do, other than they did kind of disappear. It's okay. Well, you have Morgan Riley and TJ Brody on defense, and then you have Jake McCabe and Lilligren and Timmons and Edmondson, and you have so you have a couple of top 4 guys, but you don't have 4 top 4 guys, honestly. And your final, your bottom 3 defensemen, like, okay, just pick any random 3 defensemen in the league and put them in there. Yeah. And no offense to any of the goaltenders, because Solarte was just on and said it's one of probably the 3 hardest positions in all of sports, right? Maple Leafs goaltender. But at what point do you not go out and get a real bona fide number 1 goaltender who can stop shots? Because Samsonov just didn't have it. And Woll, I thought, played really well, but got kind of lucky. I mean, for a guy making less than $800,000 a year, Woll gets all the credit in the world for keeping them in those games.
No question.
So, not to just go on and on about the Leafs, but if I'm making decisions in Toronto, we're it's like sailing, right? We're taking a new tack. So something's going to change, and not little changes. Like, we're going to. It's not even really a rebuild, because if you can get rid of a couple of those assets, if you can find somebody to take a couple of those contracts off your hands, and they're reasonable for what the numbers the guys are putting up.
Right.
So it's not like you're having to go through a rebuild or anything like that, but you need to move out some of that offensive money and bring in a real goaltender and some real defensemen so you have a balanced team. And it's the only way you're going to get past. But I mean, talk about I was pulling for the Leafs too. I mean, I was hoping they were going to do it, but then the longer it went, and then Boston, they tied it up fairly quickly after it was 1-0. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, they're cooked.
Yeah. So. I was pulling for the Leafs too, mostly for the safety of my life with a wife that is a Leafs fan. But Paul, where do you start fixing the Leafs? If there is a way to fix them, what do you do first?
Don't know. Is it wholesale changes? Is it sell your big name players, get rid of them, then go to the farm, hopefully pick up good guys in trades? But like you're saying, you can't have 4 guys who are over $10 million a year taking up half your salary cap, because I'm not exactly the best at maths, but even that doesn't add up to me.
No, it sure
need
doesn't.
More depth than 4 guys.
Yeah, and you know what? I think for me, if you're looking at one player that would have to go, it's got to be Mitch Marner. Kind of a petulant child, really, and the way he behaved in Game 5, was it? It was, Nylander was even saying, dude, stop crying. It's not the juniors. You could read his lips as he was saying it to his teammate. All of this happening on the bench in front. It was crazy. And yeah, Shanahan and new coach and everything, I think those are all guaranteed. What's guaranteed is that the Leafs have been beaten and the wheel moves on. The NHL continues with more amazing lineups and round 2s. We still have to wait to see if the Stars can put away the fraudulent Vegas Golden Knights and their Mark Stone. You had a spleen injury. No, you didn't. Yes, he did, but it just blows me away. His miraculous, healing right before the start of the playoffs.
Crazy. He couldn't come back for the last game of the season, which would have been a major cap violation. but was able to make game one. Like, good for you, Mark Stone.
Man, oh man, just impressive.
The hearing of Wolverine.
So look, Dallas and the Golden Knights in Dallas tonight. You guys want to make any predictions? Who's going to move on?
It's got to be Dallas.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's got to be Dallas. I think Dallas is the real deal. They're the Hurricanes of the West, right? Or maybe we're the Dallas Stars of the East. But I mean, there's just too much talent there. They're the better team than Vegas. I'm surprised that they haven't put this away already.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And given the whole salary cap debacle as well with Mark Stone, I don't think for me the Knights don't deserve to go through just for that.
Yeah, I was really cheering hard for like of all of the teams that could take him out, Dallas was the one that I thought they'd be up to the task for sure. I'm looking for a very exciting game tonight in Dallas and a win. That would be great. The winner then moves on to take on the Colorado Avalanche, who just dismantled the Jets. Connor Hellebuyck, where were you? The guy who was wearing that jersey, clearly not Connor. That might as well have been me. I can't believe how many goals he allowed, which of course is a statement to the talent of the Colorado Avalanche and skill. But all the same, the Jets were, if I'm not mistaken, numerically or statistically, the best defensive team in the league. And they got just throttled.
They gave up almost 30 goals in 5 games.
That's yikes. That's not Connor Hellebuyck goaltending. And then on the other end in the West, it's the Oilers who put the Kings in their place again. And there's another player who is going to be bought out, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I do not see him being a King much longer.
That's to get a new contract and then to maybe get bought out before it even is underway, right? Because he has that no movement clause for like the full 8 year or the next 7 years. Can you imagine? I mean, I'd take the money, don't get me wrong, but for people who wonder why, if they buy him out now, they owe him a third. If they wait more than a year, they owe him 2/3. So we're talking a lot of money. And if they buy him out now, as bad as that contract is, the cap hit's not terrible.
No,
it's manageable. It's manageable.
Yes, it's manageable because they spread that money out until 2039. 2039, he will be paid as paid to play or not play for the Kings, paid to not play for your team. That's crazy. And the Vancouver Canucks, what did they do? They, again, Nashville, we all thought they would be, the dark horse. And they had just 2 terrible fates on home ice. You know what I mean? Like it was game 4. Yeah, it was game 4. And they give that one up when they had it won. Besser scores 2 goals in the last 2 minutes. Unbelievable to send it into overtime. And then they get the winner like a minute in, and it was 3-1. But the Vancouver Canucks couldn't put them away at home. And so now it's all tied going into game 7. And right near the end, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
This is why you don't drink beer out of a catfish, because the hockey gods get very upset when you drink beer out of a catfish, and they say, "Oh, yeah, that's gross," and we're not going to let that go on.
Yeah, that's a very strange. I don't even know the full story about what there is. Like, someone told me the octopus thing in Detroit before, which I can't remember, something about the 8 arms and all that. I can't remember.
Yeah, back when you had to win 8 games to win the Stanley Cup, and they went 8-0 one year, and somebody threw an octopus, and now for some reason we feel the need to throw dead animals on the ice, which is just gross. Sorry.
Yeah, not exciting. So, do you guys want to throw any predictions out there as to the second round at all? Because Paul, I mean, I can volunteer first. I think, first of all, the Oilers' power play is way too strong, and they'll manage to beat Vancouver. They're moving on. I would love to see the Stars v Colorado. And strangely enough, even though I picked the Stars to go all the way to the Stanley Cup final, the version of the Avalanche that we just witnessed is going to smoke the Stars, smoke them. It's unbelievable if that version shows up. And then on the other end, Boston and Florida, a rematch of last year. It's not much of a rematch. I see Florida going through them. Just the Bruins are not going to be able to play the way they did against the Leafs against the Panthers. And we'll save Kane's Rangers for last. What do you think, Paul?
All of these games that are going to be coming up, regardless of whether it's Vegas or Dallas, that they make it through after our game tonight, they're going to be good series. I can literally see all of them going 6 or 7 games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you're saying, Ray. It's what all the matchups are going to be great. They really are. It's going to be exciting for every fan of every team. It's about as much as I can say about that. I'm not making any predictions because I'll just end up with egg on my face.
Well, that's all right. Yeah, I hear you. Brad, you don't mind getting egg on your face. I mean, you work with me. So
no, sometimes I have bad takes. I own them. People ask me, "Oh, you should have deleted that." I'm like, "No, it's fine." Like sometimes I'm wrong.
It can stay out there. Yeah.
I think Dallas wins tonight. And so Dallas, Colorado might be outside of our series will be my favorite one to watch.
Yeah.
Because it could be a barn burner. I mean, this could be a high scoring affair both ways, or they could tighten it down. What happens in the first round doesn't necessarily predict what's going to happen in the second.
Yeah.
Right. Different opponent, 7 games in a row. Like, it's tendencies and it's styles. And there's a lot of things that can cause you to have a bad first round and a better second round. And so forth. But Dallas has the firepower to beat Colorado. But if Colorado plays at all like they did in the first round, that's going to be maybe my favorite series to watch outside of ours.
No question.
Vancouver is a team. We all know I'm not a fan of the Oilers. I don't like the way they've set things up, but they are changing, so I'm going to give them the credit there. And I think Vancouver are fraudulent. I think Edmonton is going to it might take 6 games, but they're absolutely going to just beat the tar out of the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, it's just going to be not even close in my opinion. And I don't know. Vancouver had that hot start for the season and looked like they were running on, all cylinders, and then kind of fell off there. And I just don't think they have the horses to run with Edmonton. I mean, you're going to have to get, EP and those guys are going to have to play better if you have any chance of getting by Edmonton.
And further, do we know if Demko is even coming back? Because they're on their third string goaltender right now. And who was effective and played well and won against Nashville, but Nashville does not have the scoring prowess of, Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman. So
he at least practiced. I haven't heard if he's going to play, but he's at least, he's at least in the mix, right? So. And without Demko, I don't think they have any chance. And with Demko, I think it's just prolonging the inevitable.
Yeah.
Florida, Boston could go either way. I jokingly said Panthers in 3 based upon that Bruins first round.
Right.
And somebody already called me out and said, "Don't you mean 4?" I'm like, no, I meant 3.
Yeah.
If the Bruins think they're going to play like they did, against Toronto, against Florida, it's not going to be pretty. But it's Boston, right? They're going to come back. They're going to play hard. I think Paul is right. I think that series is actually going to be 6 or 7 games. There's going to be the retribution factor from Boston. They're going to want to play them really tough after just being embarrassed last year.
Yeah.
And that just leaves the one matchup, right?
The most important one.
The most important one. The one I think will be the best series, like the most exciting to watch.
There's so many, like the media, so many people are saying this is the series we've wanted since November. Like everyone has been looking forward to it. Canes Rangers. And the one thing that I'm going to say, I'll go out on the limb and say, the Canes, I think will win this series in 7. It will be a win on MSG ice, as difficult as that has been for the Canes. Canes struggle in MSG. But this is and they said, they look back to the series against the Rangers in the past as a way to justify some of their thought process. And really, you can't do that, because this Hurricanes team is the best version of itself perhaps ever. We've got Freddie Anderson, who is playing just lights out amazing. He is doing great. We've got the forwards who are all capable of scoring goals. Again, that top line of Gensel, Aho, and Svechnikov. Really, we have not had that. We have not had that type of firepower. And moreover, we haven't had the scoring all the way through the lineup. You know what I mean? And every line can contribute. So we're in good shape there. It's going to be physical as heck. This might be probably the most physical series coming up. Paul, what do you think are going to be the keys for the Canes to put back the Rangers in this one? Is there something specific that you're looking at for the Hurricanes that they'll have to do if they intend to win?
Stolf Shesterkin. That's it. I think the two teams are so evenly matched. Although kind of looking at the last couple of months of the season, that gargantuan monster that keeps injuring people for the Rangers. That's one thing that we need to be wary of. But out of that, we've always struggled against Russian goaltenders, whether it's been Bob, whether it's been Igor. Hopefully, in the last series, we got that monkey off our back with 2 Russian goalies. So, I don't know. Just, I'm nervous about it. Excited, nervous. I'm not apprehensive about it or anything like that. But the big question for me about the whole thing is, why is this not the Eastern Conference Final?
Oh man!
Why don't they reset the bracket after each round for seedings? It's crying out for it.
That's a great question.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was funny too, because Bettman was asked that on Mad Dog Radio, Sirius XM. Chris Russo had asked Bettman flat out, and Bettman just says, "No, if it's not broke, don't fix it." Essentially, we like this bracket setup that we have, where who you would end up facing all the way to the end. I think they kind of hooked up and everyone loves the NCAA March Madness bracket. And I think that's what they kind of hitched their wagon to, like, pick your bracket, you know what I mean? And that's, I mean, it's cool, but does it give you a true representation of and reward for the teams that do so well over 82 games? Do they actually get the reward that they deserve? You know,
in favor of sports betting is really what I'm hearing from Bettman.
Well, that's exactly it. That's what it was. So he stuck with it. I wouldn't expect any changes. I mean, he even pressed Russo, pressed Bettman for well, why aren't we doing 1-8? Like, let's go back to 1-8. And of course, Bettman lucks out and says there's really no changes. If it was 1-8, there's next to no changes at all the way it laid out. Some years it's like that. It wouldn't matter if you go 1v8, 2v7, it doesn't matter. Brad, how did the Canes beat the Rangers?
I think a lot of people are focusing on Matt Rempe, who had a staggering 6 minutes or so of ice time on average in Series 1. So other than him coming out and just hurting somebody, he should be a non-issue. Right. Yeah, he's big, he's physical. If he's not playing dirty, I don't know what he adds to their team. Yeah, he got a point. Like, great. You know, a lot of guys have gotten points except for Paul Bazzanti, who has no points in the playoffs. Just throwing that out there because he likes to bag on the Canes sometimes. Yeah. The reality is the Hurricanes are the lower seed, but expected to win the series, which is weird, right? And this gets back into like sports betting again, where sports betting is kind of taking over people's minds and they're seeing everything through the lens of what the odds makers say, right?
Yeah.
As much as I love Money Puck because their analytics favor the Canes, I don't think the Canes are necessarily an advantage. And if they are, it's not the 2/3 to 1/3 that I've seen online. Like and that's not Money Puck, but when I saw that we were, had a 66.7% chance to win the series, I'm like, y'all are nuts. This is going to be pretty close. Both teams were above 30% on power plays. The Rangers were all the way up at 37.5%.
Yeah.
But that's against an uninterested Washington team that was terrible and had Ovechkin. Now, obviously, he's not a penalty killer, but who just didn't look like he wanted to play, right?
5 shots?
5 shots. I mean,
5 shots.
Brutal.
For Ovechkin.
Brutal. The Hurricanes penalty kill was at 72.7% against the Islanders. That's not going to happen again. No chance. So right there, we get to, okay, how does New York beat you? They beat you on the power play.
Yeah.
So what do? You got to stay out of the box. Both teams won a little more than 50% of their faceoffs. The Hurricanes actually had more goals for at 3.8 versus the Rangers 3.75. They gave up more, 2.4 versus 1.75. So these two teams are really evenly matched.
Yeah.
Because Carolina's numbers are a little worse, but they played an opponent. If you put the Islanders up against the Capitals, I think the Islanders win that in like 5 games. Like I don't think those two teams are matched up at all. I think this is New York was playing preseason games, and the Hurricanes had to pick it up a little bit because they're actually playing some postseason games.
Yeah.
You couple that with the fact that New York has been sitting a couple extra days, and that's good for the Hurricanes, right? All you really want to do if you're the Hurricanes is get in, take one of the first 2 if you can, and then you have home ice and win 3 at home, right? The question for me is going to be, I think there's no doubt Freddie starts. They haven't seen anything, but I can't believe Anderson won't be in net. But when, and even if they're going to put in Kochetkov, how do you manage the goaltending situation? Because if you can get by the Rangers, you don't want Kochetkov having not played a real game in 3 weeks. That's not a good idea. But at the same time, this is kind of old school hockey where you ride the hot hand. And most, back in the days when teams had a goaltender and a backup. And the Hurricanes were one of the first teams who didn't really do that. We saw it in 2002. We saw it in 2006, where they're willing to use both guys pretty pretty freely. And so this is one of those times where I have to wonder, where does Kochetkov fit into this roster, right? Like, how is he going to go? And then from there, it's just you need your top guys to be your top guys. And we got secondary scoring, which was great in the first round. You're going to need that. But we need everybody to be going, how can I play more like Seth Jarvis?
Yeah. Man, Jarvis is great, isn't he? He's got 7 points, 3 goals, and he just, no matter where they put him in the lineup, he was finding ways to contribute. And that's what you need everywhere. He's kind of an X factor guy. As far as our goaltending goes, in my eyes, it's Freddie until he collapses. The whole idea of flipping back and forth and stuff, to me, the only reason why we were flipping back and forth going into the playoffs was to keep Freddie as fresh as possible for the start, because he was going to be carrying the ball the long way. If he falls short, he has a bad game or whatever, we can look at that later. But Freddie Anderson, and this is me being the Statler to your Waldorf old curmudgeon who just sees it a certain way, he's our number one. He is our number one. End of story. He's the guy you go with until he can't anymore. And then there's an opportunity for Kochetkov, and Kochetkov will be ready. He has got a mindset. He knows when his name is called and he's got to, tend the nets, he'll be ready to go. So I have no worries about that. As far as now, you've all kind of pointed out the things to be concerned with, whatever. There's one key that I think we're going to have to do better than the Rangers. So we've talked about the goal. Winning in the playoffs is goaltending, special teams, and secondary scoring. You check the boxes on those 3, you're going to win in most of those cases. But there's a key in there a little bit more specific. And for me, it is at the faceoff dot. Carolina is a puck control team. Yes, they shoot a lot. Lots of shots, always funneling towards net, and always, forechecking and stuff like that. But the way that we have such good goaltending and playing so well defensively is because we've always got the puck down on their end. The only way you get there, though, is by winning the faceoffs, right? That's why the penalty killing is so good. We win that opening draw, you fire it down the ice, that kills 30 seconds, and then you're set up to prepare to keep them from crossing the blue line. You know what I mean? Whereas you lose that draw opening in the offensive zone and the Rangers can move the puck. They can create scoring opportunities, and that's where it all comes to fruition. So to me, and it's going to be tough because one of our favorite face-off takers are playing against us, Trocheck, who has been amazing for the Rangers all season long in the face-off dot. We're going to see a lot of Stalvert v. Trocheck. A lot. And we need to win the draws. We just need to win the draws and control the puck. That, to me, will be a focus. It's not sexy, right? It's not a sexy take or whatever. That's going to be the key to our victory. If we can control the puck from the start, that'll be great. And just be a little bit more consistent. The way we played against the Islanders, not going to fly against the Rangers. It's just not going to fly. And it will get fugly if we don't start the games on time, right? Start the games on time, guys. We know when the puck drops, be there, be ready, and be amped up, right? Paul, you mentioned Rempe.
Yeah.
And everyone suggests that, why are you concerned about a guy that's only out there for 6 minutes? It's 6 minutes of mayhem, isn't it? Like what you watched him, he goes out on the ice and, he's a player like Trouba, hits to hurt. You know what I mean? It's not just taking a guy out of the play. He wants to put him through the boards. That's how he hits everyone. But he's been already suspended for the type of hits that he has. I think it's a valid point that you bring up. Like every player for the Hurricanes is going to need to have their head on a swivel when he steps on the ice. And there's something to that. If you're paying attention or worried about that one guy who could put you through the boards into the 5th, 6th row, you're not paying attention to what you're doing. I think it's a valid point, and what I'm most worried about is him going out there and crushing someone dirty, and we lose one of those pieces that we need, especially when we're talking about guys on D, because that's who he hits a lot. Are you looking for that, Paul? Are you looking for a very close to dirty hit that's going to really affect and cause an injury?
He's hit in the series against the Capitals on Van Riemsdyk.
Yeah.
I have no idea how he walked away without a suspension from that.
Mm-hmm.
That was horrific. But there's a lot of things to be said about referees and officiating on a whole beyond the regular season, because stuff that gets called regular season doesn't get called in the playoffs. It's across the board, across every game. You see it, guys with late hits. The puck's gone 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then somebody comes tanking in, smashes bodies against the boards, and referees aren't calling it. There's interference when guys are literally clotheslining people with their arms out to stop players being passed, not getting called. Again, it goes for and against every team. I'm not saying it's against one team or another. It's. I just find it bizarre. I don't know. There's so many questions to ask on officiating. You talked about it. I think in the last episode with Big Saul, about some calls. Particularly icing calls. Is that right?
Yes, the icing.
So,
brutal.
Yeah, and again, it's not just the referees; it's through the whole officiating team. But yeah, going back to Rempe, it's just a matter of time before someone gets a ridiculously long-term career-ending injury. And they had an opportunity in the last series to get him to wind his neck in a little after that Van Riemsdyk hit, and they didn't do it. Is there a Department of Player Safety anymore?
It doesn't exist. And Brad, Paul brings up something just brilliant, because and I've seen this, and we see this in this league, in this sport. They're playing with a different rule book in the playoffs. It's like they play just a different rule book at all. The penalties that you see, as Paul said very eloquently, in the regular season, they don't get called in the playoffs. And which playbook are we using here? I mean, it's not even just the regular season rule book. and the playoff rule book, it's also per player. It's per player too, because certain players get away with murder and others do not. Svechnikov gets called for so many things because of a reputation that he has, that he's built up. And other guys will do the same things that Svech does. Skate. No call.
Yeah,
just
it's
consistent. Call it by one rule book instead of like the 15 the NHL apparently has.
I think it's just the officiating is just that bad. Like, I used to say the same thing, right? I mean, that's the common thing, right? There's a different rule book for the playoffs. They're not going to call as many ticky-tack things. Takes a little more to get calls. And then I see the officiating refs and linesmen from Game 4 against the Islanders.
Ugh. The
icings that were not icings. The constant throwing guys out of the face-off over nothing. Last night, because I said this I think a week ago, where if you're going to throw guys out of the face-off so quickly, then we almost never get a second one, which would be a delay of game call. Then you're simply choosing what to call and not call based upon the situation, which is not what the rulebook says to do. So last night I saw it where they really quickly, I think they threw a Bruin out of the face-off, right? And then the Bruins had like two of the wingers kept encroaching on the circle, like really drastically, and the linesman stood up, like, you get back in position.
Yeah.
And no second call, no delay of game. Like that's a delay of game. Like you're supposed, the rule book says to call that, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think, as a matter of fact, we have the prototype best sport worst league shirt is now prototyped. I actually have one in my hand, not physically, but it's across the room. And it holds true because consistency in the playoff. It's fine if you are going to use the different rulebook mentality and say, hey, we're not going to call some of the ticky-tack things. We're going to go for the big things, but you have to be consistent. We were talking before we started taping today that a penalty 1 minute in this last night was not a penalty 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
And things like Rempe's hit on Van Riemsdyk, the league needs to decide that even if the initial contact is shoulder to shoulder or shoulder to body, if you follow through somebody's head, that's an illegal check. It should be. Yeah. Somebody pointed out online, Major League Lacrosse, for those of you who didn't know that was a thing, which is kind of like hockey, but not on skates, has a rule now. And the point of contact no longer matters in that rule. If you go through their head at any point in the check, it's illegal, when that's what it should be in hockey. And people go, oh, well, he's 6'8". So is he bigger than Chara, who did not have a problem hitting guys legally? Yeah. No. Like he relishes being the bad guy, and New York is playing into it, and that's a problem. The league needs to sit him down and say, if we see another high hit from you during the playoffs, we're going to give you like 10 games in the playoffs, which would be way over the top from what the Department of Player Safety has done. But they literally in the offseason just need to say, forget everything you know about penalties and suspensions. We're starting fresh. From now on, hits to the head are a minimum like 10 games.
Yeah.
Going back to your point, Brad, about face-off officiating, the frustrating thing for me is when you're seeing guys getting thrown out for like no reason, or we don't know because we can't hear what's going on. So the stuff will be getting said and
right.
Whatnot. But when did taking a face-off turn into a space shuttle launch? You know what I mean?
Right.
Just drop the damn puck.
Yeah.
The guys are there. The guys are there. They're not cheating. The sticks are nice. Drop the damn puck and let's get going.
100%.
I'm with you, Paul.
There should be a face-off clock in the same way that Major League Baseball has instituted a pitch clock.
Yeah.
If both guys line up and they're both ready to go, unless somebody does something really blatant, you drop the puck in 3 seconds and just go.
Here's another wee question for you. I'm not too familiar with American basketball, but I would assume that when their regular season comes to an end and they go into a postseason, again, best of 7 series, their rule book doesn't change, does it?
The NBA rulebook is one that is referenced every now and again by the officials that call the game. I like honestly the NBA is actually worse than the NHL based on who is doing the crime, and
Right.
you know what I mean. More
they have
so
an appendix in the back, Paul, and it's like, okay, well, if you're the best player in the league, like if you're LeBron James, we're only calling it if somebody is physically has to go to the hospital, right?
Yeah, like
and then it goes down every single level of star player until you get down to the bottom where you're like, oh, this guy's eighth off the bench. If he breathes on you or gives you a really funny look, then you should call that, right? Like the NBA is just brutal. Have you ever seen LeBron called for a travel? Ever?
He should, well, and really every NBA player should be called for travel.
He admitted one time he took 5 steps one time and got a layup, and afterwards he made a comment to a reporter like off the cuff that he did it to see if they'd call it on him, and they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's just nuts. And you see when a foul is called on LeBron, he loses his mind because the refs are not supposed to call fouls against LeBron James. Like that's really tongue in cheek, but kind of true.
I have a
final.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. You first. No, you first.
I was just going to say one final thing with the Rangers and Canes, and everyone has been talking about it. It's been generated a story as old as time itself about tickets being sold in Raleigh. What's the term, Brad?
Geo, I don't forget, geo fencing or geo limited or.
Yeah. And to me, that's not really what we want. And the Canes cast, Shane Willis, love him to death. If you thought I was a gatekeeper, man, you need to hear what he was saying. First of all, do not sell your tickets to a Ranger fan, because that's what home ice advantage is. We want to see very little blue in the thing. But second of all, what mostly ticks me off is the fans out there who will wear their Canes red and cheer right up until the Rangers come to town, and then they switch. And I'm telling you right now, if you are changing jerseys in the playoffs, when that team comes to town, you are not a Caniac. And you're not even a jerk the way we are a bunch of jerks. You're just not a Hurricanes fan. You're taking advantage of the opportunity to go to great hockey, watch a great team, and all the rest of it. And Shane Willis was right there with me. You listened to his last episode. He was talking about doing things to jerseys out in the parking lot. It was pretty funny. It also involved burning the jerseys. So that'll tell you what else. Do not sell your tickets to Rangers fans. All you pretend Caniacs, brutal. Shouldn't be there.
Yeah, the team needs you.
Yeah, if you're going to be a Canes fan, be a Canes fan. That's all. I needed to get that off my chest because it annoys the heck out of me. And you know darn well, Game 3, it's going to happen. You just know it. Sorry.
No. So we need to wrap up, but I did have a question for Paul. And Paul, I need to know, did you touch my drum set? Because it seems like someone definitely touched my drum set.
That's
do you want to explain why I'm asking you if you touched my drum set, sir?
So I was listening to an episode when I was driving around in my works van going to another job, Like I have you guys playing, I have Maniscalco and Willis playing on my journeys, and just something in the back of my head had said, Brad sounds like someone else. The way, and I don't know whether it was because I was sitting in a van and it echoes and stuff like that. I'm like, who is it? Who is it? So I gets home and I says to my wife Claire, I was like, listen to this. Who does Brad sound like? So she was expecting our good friend Brad Carpenter, not your good self, Bradley. So, and she's like, oh, I know what you mean. It sounds, and then it just came to me like an epiphany, and I was like, John C. Reilly, like boom. And as soon as I said it, Claire was like, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. So I messaged our good friends Brad and Sean and was like, do you think Brad sounds like John C. Reilly? And they were like, I know where you're coming from, kind of thing. But so yeah, straight on the message to Brad saying, you know who you sound like.
Oh,
did you hear it yourself, Brad, or is it just because?
I don't, but I take it as a high compliment. So, our mutual friend Brad, right? Brad and I worked together for many years, and his wife Sean, and so yeah, I take that as the highest compliment. I've always thought I could play John C. Reilly's character in Chicago should I ever want to do live theater again. So I'll take John C. Reilly. I can think of a lot worse, right?
Oh yeah, no question. That's awesome.
But and yeah, Paul said that. Now I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then now that you say it, Paul, I've never thought of listening to Brad in that way, but you're 100% right.
Oh, no.
It's totally there.
Everyone's away to watch Step Brothers now, so.
If the Canes get to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think we're going to try and get down to Raleigh. Certainly, if they make it further, we'll definitely be in Raleigh.
Oh no.
Maybe I'll have to dress up in a John C. Reilly. I'll have to put on a costume.
You're banned from games, Brad. You know, you had your chance. You went down to Long Island and you jinxed the team.
But to be fair, we won both the Hall of Fame game with a Jarvis hat trick and the Stadium Series game while I was there. So maybe actually all three of us were there. So I think all three of us need to meet for the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well,
it's the only way. I mean, we have to do. It's not for us. It's for the team, guys.
We always ask.
I'll have my people reach out to Dundon to make it happen.
There you go.
Yeah, Tom could fly all three of us in from across the globe for probably what he drops on lunch on a good day, right?
Without question. Look into that, Tom. We'd sure like to make that happen. That would be epic.
He's a big golf guy. I live 17 miles from St Andrews, so he's
there
got at some point, right?
You invite him over and he invites us over. I like it.
There you go. Quid pro quo. I love it.
I'll invite him right for some haggis.
Haggis. I've never had it, but I do think I'd be brave enough to try it.
It's awesome.
Is it? There
you
go.
It's not what everybody thinks it is. You know,
it was it Caniac Amanda, I think, was over recently and posted. She was like haggis was like great. Like I loved it. And I
met up with Amanda and our new fiance Peter in Glasgow with our fellow travellers with a good night together. Some good chat and some good banter.
I love whenever we see posts and you have like random Caniacs, or not random, but like, you know, we have Caniacs that we know through Twitter, and I'm like, oh my God, they're at Paul's house, or they're eating with Paul. Like that's really awesome that you're willing to entertain folks who come over, and hoping to make that trip myself one of these days.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I've got 2 lots of visitors from North Carolina coming over in July. One guy you know pretty well is coming over. He'll be here for your guys' Independence Day, something I wish that we had here in Scotland, but we don't. And I've got another couple of guys that are coming over at the end of July as well. So we'll be hopefully meeting up with everybody. I just love it. I love playing tour guide in Edinburgh. just love hanging out with Caniacs. You know what it's like.
If you're ever back over and come by Boston, we'll make room for you. I'm certainly happy to show you around here. And as far as independents, they really don't like it when you throw tea away. So I don't know if that's something you could do, but like the British get really upset when you like throw tea in the water. Like it started an entire war. It was that might be the way.
Exactly.
I make light, but it's a serious issue. I know for a lot of folks.
Do you mean English?
English, yes. My son even corrects me because he's like, because I know the difference, but I don't always say the right thing. And when I don't, my 10-year-old is like, that's not what you meant. I'm like, I know. No, you're right.
Your kid is the absolute best. I really enjoyed his company last year when we were over, especially when he chased me to tell me, I can't remember who scored the hat trick, but he was like, you need to throw. He's like climbing on my shoulder, trying to throw the hat.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because you guys were right in front of us and to the right, like 2 rows, and then
I just paid $30 for this hat. You're not throwing it.
Right. He was very upset with you. He's not throwing his hat. I'm like, oh, that's true. Like he's not. But so we did talk later on about like, it's but yeah, he's the best. He had a good time meeting you and Brad and Sean, who we mentioned a few minutes ago, and all the rest. And we had Kurtu was right behind us, and. Yes. Hockey with Evan. Evan was right behind us, and Caniac, One True Zach was the one who I had my extra ticket gave to. And my wife, I remember my wife during the Hall of Fame game. So Evan leans over. I didn't know who he was. And he's like, you guys sound familiar. Do you guys do podcasts? Like, are you from the Storm Cellar? And I'm like, actually, I am from the Storm Cellar. So and then he recognized Zach from the Surgecast. And my wife is like, people know you? I was like, yeah, like
apparently
we're big time, apparently, yeah. But I that was maybe the most impressive thing that's ever happened to me in front of my wife. Was people at a hockey game was like, oh, like you have a podcast. I know who I know your voice. Maybe he thought I was John C. Reilly.
Oh, there you go. Well, Brad, you know why people are recognizing your voice and all the rest of it. It has everything to do with having a podcast that has the most amazing guests. And Paul jumps in again from Scotland. Paul, thank you so much for joining us again. Love to have you back. And on one of my, I tell you, Friday when you came across that little square, it gave me that hug, man. I was loving it. It was so great to meet you in person, and wish we could have spent a little bit more time on that day. But you know what? You've done it again. You've made the Storm Cellar a great place to be in. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, guys. You guys are absolutely brilliant. Love what you do. And it's great that guests that you have on are people that I know, like Solarti and Kerttu from Finland. Although I'm a little upset you've had her on twice before you had me back on again. I'll just throw that out there. No, I'm only kidding.
We'll have you back on the third time. Yeah, we'll get you back in first for third, and we'll do more of an anecdotal. We'll swap hockey stories for an hour. How about that?
That would be outstanding.
It works for me. Again, guys,
would be outstanding.
Keep doing what you're doing. I absolutely love it. It's when I'm out driving around the Highlands of Scotland and everything like that in my van, going from job to job. You're the two guys that keep me company, along with Maniscalco and Willis. So I appreciate everything that you do. I really do.
And that means the world to us, because
it does. Wow.
We've had a lot of fun, I think, the last 4 years, and met a lot of cool Caniacs who just love the sport and love the team. And that's what keeps us going. And as long as there's people who want to talk hockey with us and share their stories, we'll keep doing it. So
we really do have a fantastic hockey community.
No question.
I know Raleigh's the centre of it all, but it goes way beyond that to Massachusetts, Alberta, Finland, Scotland.
Thailand now. Indonesia. We had somebody listen from Indonesia the other day, which was like totally cool, because I'm like, especially those like Southeastern Asia you don't think is hockey hotbeds. So maybe somebody was traveling or something, but yeah, we had a listener from each of those places in the last couple of weeks. So
gotta love
but
that.
When you get a ping from Japan or South Korea in September, that's probably me and Claire listening in.
Oh, rock on! I'll look out for that. Actually,
no question. A great episode. Another one in the books. Game number 1 for the Canes Rangers coming up in just 5 hours. Actually, less than 5 hours. We're ready for it. We hope you will be too. And there's really only one thing left to say, Brad. Go Canes!
Go Canes!
Go Canes!
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.